But I'm Matt Ralph. I'm managing editor of Philadelphia Soccer Now, and I'm pleased to be joined by Michael from the mainland, which we've had many conversations over the years of us both covering our teams. How's it going?
Doing good, Matt. How's the things?
Good. Yeah, I'm ready for. It's a little cold here right now. I don't know how the weather is down there.
It's pleasant. It's not overly hot. We had some cold for a while, then it got hot again, and now it actually feels good.
Awesome. So, I mean, catch us up on Orlando City. How are things? How have things been in the preseason, the off season? What are you looking forward to on Saturday? And besides the fact that, we're all glad that the game's not in Chester.
Well, I think first of all, the team has just completed its first winless preseason in its MLS era, so things haven't been going great. It's going to be hard to replace Facundo Torres. They went out and signed a designated player. We heard, you know, big news. Maybe they're going to sign Alex Zendejas. Maybe they're interested in Evander. They end up with this Croatian winger Marko Pasalic, who is, he looks good, but at the same time got sort of worse numbers in Croatia than Torres did in MLS, and you're trying to replace your best player with a player who didn't do as well in a worse league. So we don't really know what we're going to get.
What would you say? I mean, what was sort of the attitude around the team last year, with how things ended up, and then coming into there? Like, I mean, we're sort of been dealing with a lot of negativity here and around the union. What's the mood and the attitude around Orlando City?
I think a lot of people are kind of hopeful, but maybe not getting their hopes up too high. I think this team was within basically came within a goal of making MLS Cup final last year. It was a, a weird year because we expected the team to kind of hit the ground running after a great second half 2 years ago. Came pretty close to running down the Supporter Shield winners. Finished second in the Supporter Shield race. Um, and an okay run in the playoffs, but then this past year they just started off really slowly. They weren't scoring goals. They were giving up goals that were uncharacteristic. But in the second half, again, they turned it around, got all the way up to fourth in the conference, and then made it all the way to the conference final, which was helped a little bit by the other three top seeds all laying an egg in the postseason best of three series. But that's Orlando did its job and won its way through, and then just ran into a really good defensive team in New York Red Bulls that won on a basically just a set piece was all they really fashioned in that game, and it went in, and they end up getting to go on to play in the Cup final. But you lose your best player in the off season, and you would expect if you're one win from the Cup, take your big swing. You've got a good core of players coming back, and that's not what happened. They went out and it feels like they settled for Pasalic in some respects. Wilder Cartagena getting hurt was a big problem, but then they went out and signed Edward Atuesta, which is a really good replacement. If you're going to have a central midfielder go down, go out and get an Atuesta. That's good. But there's some question marks. There's still a lack of depth at center back. There is still really going to start the season with one real striker in Ramiro Enrique because Duncan McGuire is going to be out for several more weeks, and Luis Muriel just doesn't look like an MLS striker. He looks like either a false nine or even a 10. So we don't know what we're expecting. We're just going to be optimistic and hope that the team gets off to a good start for a change because these first halves of the season have been pretty rough the last couple of years, and if they had been a little bit better the first half of the year, who knows where they could have ended up.
Yeah, it seems to me, Michael, that Orlando sometimes is a hard team to sort of predict. Like you said, I've always kind of felt like Orlando's a team you want to play earlier in the season, especially on the road, particularly because it's in Orlando, and it's better to play in Orlando in February, March, April than playing there in July, which, remember that game a couple years ago it was just in the middle of summer, and it was like you could just see the perspiration within the first 5 minutes of the game. And it's just like not a place teams want to come in and play in the summer. The fall, I think it gets nice again, but like I said, it seems like the team tends to get harder to play as the season goes on.
Yeah, Oscar Pereja's teams seem to he seems to experiment a little bit, see what's working, and then the second half he kind of locks in on some things, and that it's good and bad because there are certain teams that Orlando will play that they just shouldn't use their starting lineup against. There's just, maybe there's a backup that's, a little bit different that maybe could do better against certain back lines. Like last year when Duncan McGuire was coming off the bench, there were several games in a row where Orlando played teams that had good defenses and had really big center backs, and they're still running Ramiro Enrique out there. He's like 5'6", and you're not going to win anything in the air. So it almost doesn't do you any good to win corner kicks or free kicks anywhere around the box because you're not going to be able to get to the service. So it is a little bit interesting how the team kind of gels in the second half of the season. I think that's a testament to how good Oscar is as a coach, that he gets things figured out. But it is a little bit nerve wracking at the beginning of the season where at one point last year, Orlando was not far from the bottom of the Eastern Conference table and then went on that run starting in July.
Obviously here, like Jim was the manager for a very long time, so
Yeah.
it is going to be interesting to sort of see how the team responds, and like I said, opening up in Florida is probably a good thing. You probably would rather play them. Well, maybe you would rather play them early on. I don't know. Like the Union haven't been known for quick and great starts either. So
Yeah. And almost every opening day has been a draw, almost every single one. And I hate to tell you this and hate to tell your listeners this, but three of the last five openers in Orlando have been 0-0 draws.
yeah, I think that's a real possibility, right? Like the preseason is like you mentioned, Orlando not winning in the preseason. The Union picked up a win against Montreal at the end, but they spent time in Spain, against some really good competition there and had some good periods of time, but overall not great. But also that's preseason when suddenly you're emptying your bench and
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of I kept saying the returns diminished when the more he went to his bench. But I think that's also pretty normal. One of the things I wanted to ask you about your thoughts on is the schedule is very different this year. I mean, I'm excited that there's no month off for Leagues Cup. The Union aren't in Leagues Cup. They're back in Open Cup and actually getting to host a game for the first time since 2018. What's sort of been your reaction to the way they've changed things and taken away that month of the season being off for competition that's I don't know. It is what it is. We'll say
Yeah.
that.
It's a money grab. You could say it. That's what it is. It's yeah, it's a mixed feeling really because that's kind of the last 2 years is that League's Cup break has been where they've reset and started off really hot afterwards and gone on and done great things in the second half. So without that, can they get their season jump started if they get off to a bad first half? I don't know. They are in the extra competition because they are in the U.S. Open Cup and in Leagues Cup this year, and I would just assume them not be in Leagues Cup because I just hate Leagues Cup, quite frankly. Um, I hate it for all of the money grabbing. You don't see a series of competitions between the English Premier League and La Liga. They don't have a month long tournament just between those. We already play those teams. The best of our league plays the best of their league in Champions Cup. So I don't feel like they need it. I would really rather have the league get behind U.S. Open Cup and give it the support it needs. And I think that it's a fantastic competition. It's the oldest U.S. soccer competition, and I think they need to do right by it and give it a chance to be successful.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, I mean, I think that the Leagues Cup was just, you know, it's fine. It's fine because it's not the season isn't breaking, right? It's fine because it's midweek games. I I accept that at least that they're the teams aren't everything, right? Because then I think that was part of the problem. I think the Union ran into that certainly being suddenly being in Champions Cup, Open Cup, Leagues Cup. Um, you know, we played Orlando the year you guys won it. Was that an overtime game, I think, right? And so, I think from that perspective, yeah, I mean, perfect world, it's this Open Cup and the Leagues Cup doesn't exist, but at least now it's not the month of the season taken off, and um, that.
Yeah. The other good thing about it for Orlando's perspective is they've really almost we haven't traveled at all for any of these games.
Yeah,
It's all been in Orlando. So they've this year we're playing three Liga MX teams in our pod or our group, whatever the heck they call this thing this year, and then we'll see. I don't know. We tend to get through the first round and then get stuck with a really difficult opponent in the first knockout stage and exit quickly. We had Miami in Miami 2 years ago, and we were the only group winner that had to go on the road in the second in the first knockout stage. And then last year, uh Cruz Azul, and that was a brutal game where it was just no room for anybody to do anything and went to penalties, and it was the first time Orlando had ever lost a penalty shootout.
yeah. So how do you see Orlando lining up on Saturday? And I guess the other question I had for you was, who is the face of this team now? I mean, you had, like you said, you lost your best player. Who is the person or the people that will most be associated with Orlando City Soccer this season?
Yeah, it's a good question because the captain of the team is our center back Robin Janssen, who is sort of our. I guess we probably feel about him the way you guys felt about Glesnes to some extent. We love Robin. He plays a very uh, sound defensive game. He's not flashy, but he's been around a long time. He's our all-time leader in games played, and he's probably the face of the team right now. But that could be Martin Ojeda by the end of the season. He's really come on as the 10 starting in the second half last year. He was brought in as a designated player the year before last and couldn't even start. I mean, just couldn't. He was a bench player. He wasn't doing much as a starter, and then last year kind of started out on the bench, coming off the bench, even though he was still a DP. And then midway through the year, they started him at the 10, and he performed really, really well the second half and really kind of changed the offense where the team started to go on a run with several multi-goal games in a row. Really a lot of trouble scoring in the first half. So he might be on his way to that. But I think what you're going to see Saturday night is the typical Oscar Pareja 4-2-3-1. You'll see Galese in goal. You'll see the back line of Rafa Santos at left back, Janssen and probably Rodrigo Schlegel at the center back positions. He seems to have been holding off the last year's European purchase of David Brekalo, the Slovenian international that Orlando bought. So Schlegel will probably be the right center back. And then the Icelandic player, Dagerdan Thorolson, will probably be the right back, almost certainly. He's kind of locked that down. He was brought in as a midfielder, but he's kind of adapted to that position really well. He still has some moments of defensive iffiness, but he's come a long way with his defense. He's gotten much better, and he is a good player jumping into the attack and even just sliding into the midfield and creating an extra obstacle for the opponents to try to play through. So you'll see him there. Defensive midfield will be Cesar Araujo and Eduard Atuesta. And then the attacking three in the midfield will be Angulo on the left, speedy guy, really bad last ball. He can't really doesn't really put enough balls in the net as he should. Um, Ojeda at the 10, and you'll see Pashalich, the new DP at the right wing, and then you'll see Ramiro Enrique up top. And then sometime in the second half, You'll see Luis Muriel come in. Um, Other than that, I can't even tell you who else might come in because this is going to be a team where the starters are going to go deep into the game most games, I think.
Yeah, and you mentioned Duncan being out. I mean, he's a guy that I don't think Union fans like very much. I don't think many opposing teams care for Duncan. I mean, he is the
Yeah.
kind of guy that will come in and he has that ability to score that goal that just
Yeah.
breaks teams.
He can wreck you. He's one of those guys that if he's on your team, you absolutely love him, and you just don't want to see him on the field if you're facing him. He can turn something and nothing into something at a moment's notice. I will never forget the way he basically ended Michael Bradley's career in Toronto. Just an amazing play where he popped the ball up over Bradley, beat him on speed, and then just smashed a cannon shot into the upper left corner. It was something.
Yeah, like I said earlier, better to play Orlando in the spring than in the fall. So, but we could be seeing you in the Open Cup or in the fall again. So,
Yeah, it's a
uh,
weird series too. We sometimes we do better at your place than we do at our place against you.
yeah. Yeah, like I said, like I think the team has definitely had success in some interesting games in Orlando. So I'm looking forward to, at the very least, some odd things that will happen opening day, oddity, if nothing else. If there are no goals, at least something, and probably some saves. At least these keepers are going to each make at least one big save, I think, in the game.
I think you're right. Yeah.
That's pretty much a given when they play against each other. Obviously two of the best keepers in the game. So appreciate your time. Great to connect with you, and we'll probably be talking again in a couple months as well.
All right. Thanks, Matt.
All right, thanks so much. Appreciate it.